welcome to Unlocking Our Code podcast. Tonight, we will be diving into broken patterns in parenthood. We will be identifying broken patterns in parenting and how this is a powerful step towards creating a healthier home environment. And tonight, I'm here with Lou. Hi, Lou.
Hey,
How are you?
doing good. Just trying to get over this cough and cold that I've still kind of been lingering for days. You know, the cough never goes away. It just stays there forever.
Yeah, and it could be annoying after a while.
Yeah, I know. So excuse me if you guys hear me cough. I know that it affected me the last two episodes, but I'm sorry. It's part of what I'm going through.
Yes, for sure. And how do you feel about tonight's I forgot the word. How do I
Episode?
figure? Yeah, tonight's episode. How do you feel about it?
It's one that I was trying to think like how I wanted to break it down or what I felt like was super important to share. And at some point I was like, wait, do I even, feel like I have enough to share? But then I realized how so much of it I'm really aware of the difference that I've made in the last couple of years when it comes to my parenting styles. And I have to admit, like, I'm really proud of how far I've gone, when it comes to parenting my kids. As in, like, how I was aware of what I was doing that I thought was wrong and that I'm changing now. So I don't think I have it right all the time, but I definitely do feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, it's a journey, right? I feel like, yeah, me too. I'm right there with you. Since COVID and on, I began to have that journey of parenting differently. Not only parenting differently, but I began reparenting myself, right? Which I feel like in this journey of breaking broken patterns and parenting, reparenting ourselves, at least for me, it was the first step. I couldn't even step into trying to understand a lot of the conscious parenting concept without looking at myself first. And I definitely feel like beginning to understand how I was parented, beginning to reflect on what I learned through the parenting I received was definitely like a game changer, going through this journey, just giving myself that opportunity to reflect more than anything, but to reflect without pointing fingers and blaming anybody, right? Because when we're still very caught on that cycle of blaming or on that cycle of victimhood, it's very difficult for us to begin reparenting ourselves. I feel like for sure those steps also like are very important to begin that process as well of understanding from a higher perspective what we went through and how it has shaped us to be who we are today, right? But how important do you feel like reparenting ourselves is?
Now that you're actually you mentioned that, I do remember like when I think I started being very aware of my parenting styles, and you are absolutely right. I was pointing fingers like right off the bat, I really was pointing fingers and judging and being resentful. When I started seeing it from that perspective, and then having to, I guess, how would I say it? Like, kind of give to myself what it was that I was looking for. Like, I mean, when you talk about how does someone reparent themselves or reparenting yourself? I guess, is that what you mean? Like you giving yourself what you felt you missed as a child?
And unlearning.
Okay.
Unlearning
Yeah.
a lot of the programming and the patterns that we learned in childhood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So those two key points,
Yeah.
like those are two big
That's
points.
what that. So that's when somebody's hearing right now, reparenting yourself before you start to parent others. That's what it means, right? And I just want to make sure that we're both on the same page when we're saying this, because then I do know what you're talking about. You know, it's going back, and I think it had a lot to do with, like, you know, when it first I started being very aware of like where my pain came from, and I guess like where it came from, how I felt as a child, doing a lot of like it's the inner child work, you know, going back to like the different stages and ages in my life where I feel like it was the most impact is still stayed with me, and then going back and understanding like what did I need at that time, and what things stuck with me, like what am I doing right now that I learned from my parents, that I'm like passing on to my kids. So all that I had to learn, and it was not like a 1 year thing. I feel like I'm still definitely working on that, right? But it's been nice to break free from that, and we talked about it in the last episode, right? And broken patterns and breaking cycles and stuff like that, and learning all that. And so this is what, you know, this episode is all about. It kind of ties into the last one, but this is more obviously about the parenting. But it's very true, you know, reparenting like that is it's extremely important to reparent yourself, to go back and see what is it that your your inner child needed, still needs to this day. What do you feel that it was your inner child was lacking? And like you said at the beginning, I think you probably will want to point fingers and judge and be resentful, because all these feelings and emotions are coming back up again, you know. And then you're like, what the heck, you know, like I was a child, like, you know, I needed these things. And then you feel like you want to go and tell, you know, not tell your parents, but you know, you feel that resentment. But again, understanding at that point, understanding your parents, you know, point of view. But like, again, you can't control any of that. You can only control yourself. So giving that to yourself, you know, and giving that to myself, you know, being able to understand like a lot of the things that they taught me were their beliefs as well. I mean, it's what they had. It's the tools that they had, you know, so I understand all of that now. And so then I'm able to now make that that decision, to very aware decision now, you know, like a conscious decision, and say like, all right, I'm gonna change this now. For me, it's like I said, I'm very proud of myself, of the work that I've done. I see it's like, no joke, it really is like you're planting a seed in your children, and then you just watch it grow, and you're like, oh my God, like it's like literally like a little fruit tree that you plant, and then you see it grow. Next thing you know, it's like giving you fruit, and you're like, oh my God, like look at my kids, they're like, you know, this is I taught them this, and it's really working, like, so it's been oh man, it's one of the things that I'm most proud of right now.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Definitely. It's so rewarding to begin seeing your, like all those, like you're saying, like the effect of the seeds that you've been planting, right? It's very rewarding to see that. But when we are in the middle of toxic patterns, right? When we're like living the very depths of that cycle of our life, right? I feel that in that point of our lives, we don't realize that we're in the middle of that a lot of the times, right? So like, for example, some of the patterns that I could share that I was so like enmeshed in at that time, and that I didn't see myself was I was very disconnected emotionally from my children. Right, I was very disconnected. I thought I was fine, right, at that time.
Yeah, you
But I
can
was
see that.
I could see now seeing it's like I was very disconnected emotionally. I was not available as a safe place that much because I was constantly reacting. So I mean, how could I be a safe place for them if I'm like a ticking bomb at all times, right? I also noticed that I wasn't present with them. And what made me realize a lot of this, thank God for COVID time, right? Because during COVID, I had to stay home. I had to stay home for the first time ever since they were born. And I was the only one at home with them because my husband was still, his job still required him to be on the field, right? But mine, I could stay at home. And at that time, they were in second and third grade, right? So at the beginning, I was struggling because I was having to be focused with them like I never have before, right? Because before we used to send them to school. And after a couple of months from that time, I began realizing that, oh my God, I've never been present in this way with my children. Like literally present. There's nothing else in my mind other than just be a mother. And I began noticing how I was needed to make some changes. You know, my not only was I disconnected with them, my eldest daughter wasn't like in the best place as well, and I did not have the tools to help her. I didn't have the tools to help her emotionally because I hadn't done my own work at that time. I remember hitting rock bottom one day with her as I was, she was in high school, and I was like navigating this very difficult times with her. And at that time, we've always been used to pointing fingers at the kids. Oh, the kid's the one that's, being rebellious. The kid is the one that's going, acting out, or blah, blah, blah. Just kind of like pointing fingers out, right? And I remember the night that I hit rock bottom, and I was praying and saying, God, show me why this is happening. What point am I missing that I'm not seeing? And I remember clearly getting a message that said, you're not willing to be the mother that your child needs. And I remember that when I got that message, it really shook me because it shook me from within. It was like a feeling I had never felt, because in that specific moment when I heard, you're not willing to be the mother that your child needs, I no longer had an excuse to point the fingers at her. I had to point them at myself. And when I started pointing the fingers at myself, oh my God, the journey began, because I was willing.
Yeah.
I was willing to do what it took to be my child's safe place, to be the mother that she needed, right? After that happened and I was open, I didn't know how it would play out. I just remember being open and saying, I'm open, God. I will do what it takes, what I have to do, right? And get ready, because I went test after test. And I remember one of the things that I really had to learn was to stop reacting. And my daughter was being the biggest teacher during this time for me to stop being so reactive at everything that happened around me, right? So I had to learn that the louder she got, the more silent I had to be, right? So that I could begin to control my own nervous system and began how could I say, go from being so reactive to then now being regulated. There you go. So I had to really learn the hard way, and I had some really tough moments. I remember that months after me doing the work and just showing up and saying, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do what I need to do. I began seeing movement. I began seeing that my daughter was beginning to feel safe around me, and that's when I began noticing, oh my God, I've gone this journey wrong. I thought it was about my kids. It's not about my kids. It's about me. It's about reparenting myself,
Yeah.
so that I could be the safe place for
Yeah.
them, right? And that for me was life changing, because definitely before I used to believe that parenting was about the parent, and no, parenting was about the child
Yeah.
and not the parent.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that parenting was about me first,
Yeah.
right? To be able to become the parent that my children needed.
Yeah.
So that was a big broken cycle that I had to like navigate and
Yeah.
see how I had been in a pattern that where I wasn't willing to be the mother that my children needed. And not because I didn't want to, it's just I didn't have the tools.
Yeah.
I didn't even have the awareness
Yeah.
that was a thing, that
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a pattern,
Yeah.
right? And I had to go through this journey
Yeah.
to see it, and I'm still in it. I still learn all the time. Because our teachers are our teachers. Our children are our greatest teachers, right? That I truly feel
Yeah.
that if there's that we got it wrong, that we think that we're here to teach them, no,
Yeah. No.
they're here to teach us
Yeah.
more about our own
Ourselves,
selves.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I every time you tell me that story about you and your daughter, I always get chills every time you tell me, because I can only imagine. Like, I feel like you and I have very common the way we were raised. Like, it's very, I feel like it's within the same ways, and it just reminds me a lot about how I feel like I was at the same time, and how I feel that I was parenting my kids also, and mainly my son. I mean, he's going to be 18 already, but you know, and it's true. You always want to. It always wants to be like, oh, it's always them, like all these, they're, like you said, they're rebellious, or they don't listen, or they're ungrateful, or they're, but you're absolutely right. It's not them. It's us. It's us, going back to us. And I feel very like the same when it comes to who I was, what I was. I feel like I definitely lacked effective communication. I was always too busy, no patience. It's just exactly like you. I feel like I was never present, and just giving in all the time, just so I wouldn't have to deal with it, because I didn't have time for it, So what does a busy parent do when you don't want to deal with the whining or the complaining or with nothing? You just give in. Definitely disconnected from the emotional needs. I was not raised with hugs and kisses or I love yous, none of that. And many of us were raised that way, right? Like we call it the tough love, right? Tough love. And how many people idolize that? Like,
Still to this day,
idolize tough love.
they say it proud.
They're super proud about being raised with tough love. And then they're super proud that they're raising their kids with the tough love mentality. And then what do they say about that? We were raised that way and we turned out fine. You're just like, you sure about that? You sure you turned out fine? Because, if you want to ask me, don't ask me. But, I mean, I feel like I was in that same boat for a long time.
Yeah.
Our parents weren't raised that way. And they didn't have that. They didn't have those tools. And at one point, I think one thing that made me realize, and kind of, it's been a while now. It's been like about maybe, let me see, my daughter's going to be 13, maybe about 10 years ago. my husband and I, we did some couples counseling. We did couples counseling for like about a year. And one thing that our counselor did, that one thing that he said that stuck with me and till this day sticks with me is when he told us, you know, he said, you guys have to figure out how to work together, because it starts with you two first. Like, you guys cannot be good, like, you guys can, if you two are at you know, at each other's throats, then you're not being good parents for your kids, right? So that's what we were trying to learn. Him and I needed to have more effective communication skills. That's what we were trying to go for, or that's what we went for. But one thing our counselor said, and always stuck with me, was, he said, you guys need to remember that you guys need to do this for yourselves, but more importantly for your kids, because you do not want your kids to be sitting in my couch one day.
Oh, God.
And when he said that, I was like, oh my God, like, yes, my kids are going to be sitting down on your couch one day, you know? Are you kidding me? Like, look at everything that we're doing, we're putting them through, you know? And he said, because you guys are so emotionally disconnected. Like, you know, I remember telling him, like, it feels weird. I know this sounds, you know, I know that for a lot of people it's going to be like, what is wrong with you? But it felt weird to hug my kids and tell them I love you. Them coming up, like, even right now saying it feels weird because I'm so used to it now. But back then, like, my daughter would like to come, you know, if they wanted to hug me, or I'd be like, get away from me. Like, what do you want? You know? Then my daughter would come and say, good night, Mom, I love you. And I'd be like, yeah. Like, go to sleep already, you know? Like, that was my response. And I just was not, it just, nothing in my being wanted to, it was awkward for me. It was super weird, you know? And I really did think that I was going to be like that forever. Like, I did think, like, and I would say it out loud too. I mean, like, that's how I was raised. I mean, it was tough love. Like, oh wow, it is what it is, you know?
And what helped you?
Other than what he told me that day, where he said,
that.
you know, that think about your kids. You don't want them sitting here in my sofa, you know, when they're old, talking about you guys, you know? And I was like, oh my God, I do not want my kids to be sitting in somebody's chair saying, like, my parents screwed us up, you know? That's where I think it first started, where it started, like, I started realizing, like, okay. And I remember him, like our counselor at the time, saying, you need to start practicing it. It is going to be weird. It's going to be awkward at the beginning. He's like, but you just need to practice, and it's going to just come naturally to you. And I remember thinking that's never going to happen. And then it did feel super weird. But then I started doing the work for me, like, on myself. Like, what did I need? And again, I started doing the whole looking back and then pointing the fingers. I think I went through like a year or two where I was like really resentful with my parents, with my siblings, you know. And I felt like, because of the things that I felt I lacked, right? The emotions that I felt like were not met, the needs that I felt like I didn't get. Like, I felt like I was gypped as a daughter. I felt like I was gypped as a sister. Like, I felt like, what the hell? Like, you know, I didn't get all these things. And I would see other people around me, other families, and, you know, their parents were there for them for everything. Their siblings were like best friends. And I didn't have that, you know? And so again, so for like a few years, I was angry. Like, I lived off of anger. Anger fueled me. And I'd argue with my mom. I would like, don't talk about my dad. I was fuming every time I spoke to that man or spoke of him, you know? And then I felt like, just like, I would just feel like, when it came to my sisters, I love my siblings, but I feel like there was some sort of something there that didn't let me fully 100%, I don't know what the word is. Like, I just feel like there's something,
Like bond?
Yeah.
Like truly bond
Like
from
truly,
within?
Yeah, like
them?
truly bond from like yeah, from within, like, you know, deeply. And because I felt that like I lacked all these things and I wanted to blame them for it, right? And I think one time I was here with you, and we're doing the woman circle, and I came to a realization that I had an expectation of them, you know, of what I expected, and I was blaming them, or I had these resentment feelings that I couldn't control from within because I had expectations of how they should have been with me. And so I thought that was extremely unfair, you know, and I realized then, like, that's really unfair. Like, those are my expectations, you know, like me. Like, you can't blame somebody else for not meeting your expectations, you know? Especially when I see them now with compassion, I see them now as a person, not as my parents, not as my siblings, but as their own person. And so that was extremely helpful also. So I mean, all those things had to like come into place for me to be like, man, I understand so many things, not only from my perspective. Like, it's not just, you know, it's not only me. Like, I have to see everyone from their own, you know what I mean, like from their own lens, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was extremely helpful for me when it came to parenting. And then just giving my children, just giving them now. Oh man, now just to go back, now I love the shit out of my kids. Like, I love to hug them. I love to kiss them. I love to tell them exactly how I'm feeling about them when I'm like in my feels. Like, I tell them, I am now really, really learning how to like accept their emotions and their feelings, and tell them like, I feel like maybe at some point I was like, maybe you guys are too young to understand these things, but no. Oh my God.
They're very aware, very smart.
So aware, you know, they understand that how their emotions make them react. And so now they understand, like, why are you feeling this way? And so they're like, yeah, okay. So now they understand. So, and then I'm just telling you, like, just watching them, it blows my mind.
They're like our biggest teachers, huh?
Yes.
Like, Abby will tell me sometimes, Mom, not everything that you see is real. She's like, you have to remember that. She's like, not everything that you're seeing is real. I'm like, what? Girl. Yeah, they're our biggest teachers.
Yeah, because Abby and Mia are the same age. Mia, I am so proud of that girl. Like, you know, the things that she tells me, and the fact that she's so self-aware of people's emotions, and she knows when to be like, you know what, Mom, it's okay. They're going through things that I wouldn't be able to understand because I'm not in their shoes. So they can act that way, Mom. You know, like, it's like she's telling me like it's okay, and I'm just like, I look at her, I'm like, golly, like, who are you? But it just keeps making me more and more proud. So, you know,
for sure, because she's mirroring you. I mean, just hearing you speak, you can tell the amount of work you have to do, the amount of inner work, the amount of like facing those really dark places that kept you chained, that where you couldn't express love or you couldn't give hugs. I myself, same way, same thing. So I truly, I'm so proud of you for doing that. I'm still in my journey. For me, it's still not coming natural just yet. I began saying I love you now. Yeah. I could give kisses now. Yeah. But the hug is really, really very difficult for me. But I'm trying. I'm still there. I'm still very deep in my journey. But the fact that I'm able to say I love you now, that I'm able to give a kiss, that I'm able to say positive things to them and express myself. I know it's a journey, and that we just have to be compassionate for ourselves as we're going through that process. But, you know, going back to what you were saying a little bit, isn't it so crazy that the thing we reject the most, which in this case was love or like hugs and kisses, is what we need the most.
What we need the most, yeah.
What we reject.
Yeah.
The most, right? And I find that so, like, interesting that I used to reject a lot of the love, a lot of, like, hugs and kisses, even from from my partner. I had like when he came into my life, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Like, this is too much for me.
A lot,
Yeah.
because I never grew up with any type of physical touch or love or warmth or I love yous or kisses ever. I don't even have a memory ever of my mom or my dad ever hugging me and saying I love you.
Yeah.
So like when this person came into my life and started doing all those things, my body was like all over the place. I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot for me. And his whole family is the same way. And to me, it was just like a lot to take in. But I learned so much. I learned to open myself to the love. I learned from him, from his family. Like, so learning, you're right. So when we're not connected to those parts of us, like, there's always people, if we pay attention, there's people modeling those traits already. So like paying attention to how they do it or asking questions, right? Like that's why I was telling you, how did you do it? And you're like practicing and then remembering
every day.
Yeah.
And even when it's awkward, like I remember very clearly many times, not just one time. Like I'm in the shower and I could replay this like so vividly. And Mia is coming in and she's brushing her teeth or whatever, and she's just like, "Okay, Mom, I'm gonna go to sleep now." And I'm like, "All right, Mia." And she's like, "Good night, Mom. Good night, Mia. I love you. I love you too. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." And then she'd go away, and then for whatever reason she forgot something, so she'd come back in the bathroom. She's like, "Oh, I forgot. I don't know what it was." And then she's like, "Okay, good night, Mom." I'm like, "Good night, Mia." And she's like, "Okay, I love you." And I'm like, and I was about to say, "God, Mia, I already told you. Like, how many times do you need to hear it? You know, like." And I have, and I'm not gonna lie, I have told her that before in the past. I'm like, "Okay, how many times do you need to hear it?" You know, but now I'm more like, I still have to kind of like take a split of a second and be like, "Don't deny this to your child. Don't deny it to her." You know. And so then I'm like, "I love you too, Mia. See you in the morning," because that's like her thing. Like she's so. That it just comes naturally to her. So for me, she's like giving me what I need, but she's also reflecting and showing me like, this is where you need to work on, and you are gonna do it until and so she shows me that, and this girl is that, she's that person. Like she's the person that she'll come home and she'll tell me about a friend of hers that's struggling with something, or a friend, she had like her friend had like a bit of an attitude moment. And she's like, and I'm like, "Okay, well, Mom, you never know, Mia, what's going on." She's like, "Yeah, it's okay, Mom. She probably just needs a hug, And I think it's so funny because I'm like, you're absolutely right. She probably just needs a hug, She's like, "Yeah." So those are the things that I'm like, man, this kid is really teaching me, like, but I am so proud that she feels so open and so safe to talk to me about everything that she's feeling, along with the younger one. And like I said, I mentioned it before in other episodes where I've told my son, like, I'm sorry that that I wasn't this one, because that he got the brunt end of all of it. He got the mom that is like, "Oh, I'm not huggy, I'm not kissing and everything, like I don't do that." He got like everything that I struggled with, and I could see it in him. In the girls, they can move out right now and they would be fine without me. But my son, I feel like he's still very I feel like I was disconnected, from the emotional needs. I had no patience. I was always too busy with him, like just not present, and I just gave in. Like, "Here, what else do you want? This? Okay, yeah, what else do you need? Just here, take it." And so then I, I feel like, now that I see things, before I really started doing the work, I would be like, "You're so ungrateful," like I had expectations of him, and he wouldn't reach these things. And then I'd be like, "What? You're like ungrateful little shit. Like I give you everything. Like you've had everything. What do you have that that you could?" And so now, like, I have to go back, and I'm like, it has nothing to do with my kid. Like I created this. I made this beautiful monument here, and now it's not doing what I wanted to do, and I'm like, what the heck happened, and I want to blame it for what I didn't do. And so I need to go back to me and change it. And that's what I told him now. I said, I'm really working on myself to be better. And I see little things in him too that I feel like, okay, good. He's like you said with Aya, like when they're speaking, when they're reacting, it's our job to shut up and listen. And instead of reacting, because that's exactly what we want to do. We just want to react.
Yeah, because you're teaching them. You're teaching them. They're teaching you, and you're teaching them, right? And it's also like, I want to go back really quick to that part where you said that you had expectations of your child, right? There's a book that I recommend a lot of. If you don't have it as a parent, it is like a must book that I picked up myself. And she's like, this person like has changed my life. Anytime I'm going through something in parenthood, I always refer back to her work, and it's Dr. Shafali, and the book is The Parenting Map. All her books are about parenting, conscious parenting, and she's always pointing the finger back at you so that you get to learn more about you. So there's a part in her book where she says that as long as you think good parenting is about fixing kids, you will micromanage the living daylights out of them. You will try to manipulate and change them. And you know what happens when we try to change anyone other than ourselves? We fail, crash, and burn. Because we're trying to change somebody else, right? Even if it's your own child, right? How many parents don't have the belief because I gave birth to you, you must do what I say, right? Which it goes into into these broken patterns, right? So for example, the parent that believes that they own the child because they gave birth to the child, and the child must obey, right? Must obey what the parent says. So that's one of the patterns. Another pattern that I have is an authoritarian parent, right? The one that wants control over everything and has excessive rules, and they must obey, and the child must obey instead of understand.
Yeah.
Another one that came up is like the helicopter parent, right? The one that's fearful all the time that something will happen, something bad, and is trying to overprotect, over shelter the child, and it doesn't allow the child to breathe. These are some of the patterns that there's, of course, many more, but these are some of the patterns that we wanted to talk a little bit about, right? So, for example, the authoritarian parent, right? What does that parent look like? It looks like a parent that has over control in the family over the children, excessive rules, chooses to parent with obedience instead of like teaching the child to understand, right? Punishes mistakes very harshly instead of teaching them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And what impact can every single style of parent that we are will have an impact on the child. Every single style. Whether you're the loving parent, what's going to be the outcome of you being a loving parent? Well, a positive outcome. What's going to be the outcome of you being an understanding parent? Well, a positive outcome, right? What's going to be the outcome of a safe parent? Positive outcome. But what's going to be the outcome of negative patterns? Negative outcomes. And then we question why our child has low self-esteem, is sad, is depressed, has anxiety, it's being a rebel, it's doesn't want to come out of the room, we question all these things, but we never ever look at us, right? Why is my child in this pattern? The question should be, how am I in the pattern? And I have brought my child into the pattern, right? So if your child is struggling, for example, with being a rebel, usually teenagers are known to be rebels, right? I truly believe that teenagers are acting out and being rebels because they're in that pattern with you. Not because all teenagers don't act out just because.
Yeah.
Yes, kids are going do certain things as children, right? But I don't really believe that every single children will act the same way just because they're 12 and they're 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe that. I feel that children that are in certain patterns will act a certain way, and that's because they, first of all, are living in very stressful environments, right? Where there's physical, mental abuse, where there's no emotional connection, like where there's not home's not a safe place they come to, right? So how could those children not have those type of issues happening, right?
And there's right now not only the the rebellious kids, but how many kids, oh my gosh, like, I hear it all the time with stories, like now that our kids are in middle school, how many kids are dealing with depression?
A lot.
So many. How many kids are taking their lives?
A lot.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm hearing stories of, like, terrible stories of, it's just, yeah, it gets too close to home sometimes. And then I'm just like, when the parent acts out because their kid is going through that moment, and like the reaction is like an angry reaction, like, why are you, like, are you dumb, or what the hell is, what's wrong with you, why are you being so, like, ungrateful, you have everything, how could you be, or there are some parents that are trying to figure out, like, why I'm trying to get them help, but it's still again, like, go back to you, like, again, like, I just picture, these are the seeds you planted. This, like, you reap what you sow. This is your tree. This is, if it's growing a certain way, if it's drying, if it's dying, if it's not growing any fruit, what happened? What went wrong? It was, you planted it. You're the farmer. It's yours. What did you do wrong? You don't go and yell at the tree and be like, are you stupid? Or like, are you fucking dumb? Like, how could you be so, no, like, that was yours. Treat it with care. Like, try and figure out, right? We're always going to figure out, what could be wrong with this plant? Or what could be wrong with the tree? Like, what did I do? Maybe I didn't plant it right. Maybe I pruned it too early. Maybe I did this. Maybe I do that. Like, try and figure out what we're doing first, ourselves. And again, like, if you're sitting here, if you're listening to this and you're saying, tough love is the way I was raised and I grew up perfectly normal, I'm going to be the first person to tell you, if I could tell you, well, I am telling you right now, no, you're not normal. It's not normal. That's not the way to raise your child. That is, it has so many lacks. There's so many things lacking. And again, when you go back and you look at your kid, and instead of being reactive, be more understanding, and first and foremost with yourself. And so that way, when you do put something out for your kid, it's more of a place of understanding, of love, of, I don't know, nurturing, caring. And one thing that I really can't stand now that I'm saying these things, is when parents say that kids are now being too soft, being raised too soft, because now we need to understand their needs, and they think it's ridiculous. Like, if kids don't have needs, and they're like, these kids are being too soft these days. Nowadays, kids are so soft, like,
is it that they're soft, or is it that we were forced to be hard?
Yeah.
Or that we were forced to grow up quickly.
We were forced to grow up quickly. Like, we had to know about money loss, about not having enough money, lacking. We had to know about, at least I'll speak for myself, if you want to share your story. But yeah, I had to learn about paying bills. I had to learn to write checks for my parents when I was in elementary, and they told me about how much things cost, and you see how much this costs, and you see why, because you can't do this. And so I grew up thinking I'm always lacking money. I grew up thinking no relationship. I had no idea what a good marriage was like until I probably went to a friend's home and I seen their parents having a more or less a what I thought at the time was like, wow, my parents don't even, nothing close to that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up like not nothing. Like there's um, no care about what my school was like, my homework, if I did it or if I didn't. Like there's none of that, you know. I started working because I started working. You know, I guess school was a thing. They mentioned like if you go to school, we'll pay for it. If you want to work, go to work, whatever. I started working and just kind of was like, all right, you're 16, you started working. Okay, well, do your own thing, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
I can't even picture doing that with my kids. Like, there's no way, but we grew up like that. We grew up coming home to nobody in the house and just figure it out, survive.
Yeah. And why would we want to pass those things, right? It's like I was having a conversation the other day with my son-in-law, and we were talking about struggle, right? And he was telling me, yeah, you know, it's just unfortunate that we had to grow up in so much struggle, he says, right? He's like, and then somebody made a comment like, these kids don't know what struggle is nowadays, right? And then he says, and why would we want them to know? Why would we want them to know what struggle is? If we know how that feels, why would we want our children to know what that feels like? You know, life will give them enough experiences about everything. Trust me, they have their own path. They have their own missions of why they're here on earth. Life will take care of teaching them what they need to learn. We don't need to inflict more of that.
And it's like,
at all.
Yeah, you guys don't even know the struggle, but that one, like, that feeling of guilt, I think I mentioned it one time in the episode, was like almost like making us feel guilty for what they had to go through. Like, when I was your age, I had to do this and this and this, and like, why should you have this if I didn't have that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, you think about it and you're like, all right, well, I guess I shouldn't feel good about having this, right? It makes you feel a certain way where
confused.
You can't fully enjoy something because now you're raised with like, your parents didn't have that. They went through all this struggle for you. And I mentioned it before again, and I'll mention it again. No child owes their parent absolutely anything.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. So if, like, you know, when I hear parents say that, I gave you life. You should be proud of, you should be thanking me for everything I do for you. You should be, you know, you owe me this, you owe me that. Like, I don't owe you shit. They don't owe you anything. Like, nothing. You know, you brought them into, yes, did you work 2-3 jobs for them? Are you working a full-time job for them? You should be. Why? Because you brought them into your life. Like, they didn't say, bring me. And
our souls called them.
Yeah.
Or actually us, we called them into our lives to teach us more about us. And in return, we help them, we guide them in life while they're babies, while they're growing up. But yes, it is going to come to a point where we will have to let go. And usually a child's going to learn what it needs to learn from the parent up until the age of maybe 10, 11, maybe if you're lucky, 11. 12 and on, they will choose what they want to take of the things that you taught them, and they will choose to create their own experiences. We don't have a say of how their life moves after that. They came to earth with their own mission, just how we did, with their own purpose. And when we remove the illusion that we own our children because they're ours, that they must move right or left because we say so, or that they must take this class or that class, and they must play this sport or that sport, that's like, we are taking their power away, right? Especially when the child has no desire on participating in certain things, right? Or us trying to live our lack of experiences through the child, right? So I always feel like us remembering that they came to have their own experiences, and not because they're little or that they can't really defend themselves yet, do we as parents have the right to try to control or manipulate their little worlds. You know, they came to have their own experiences. And of course, us as parents, we sometimes see things normal because we were raised that way. But trust me, a lot of the things that we've learned to be normal are not.
No.
They're not. There's a lot of patterns that we as humans need to unlearn and relearn to be able to parent in a more healthier way, to be able to parent from a place of abundance and love instead of a place of lack, fear, and just trauma.
Yeah.
Like if there's a question that you can ask yourself is, what frequency am I parenting from at this moment? Am I parenting from fear or am I parenting from love? Which one is it? And if you're parenting from fear, your outcome will be just that. It will reflect that. And if you're parenting from a place of love, then your parenting will reflect love, right? And it's not easy to hear, and it's not easy to see the truth for anybody, but it is life-changing because it's so important that we take responsibility of our actions, and that we truly see how we can affect the next generation, right? So it's like, are we passing the torch of pain again to another cycle, or is it ending here? Right? So it's like, I feel that that's why I feel so passionate about this topic, because man, pain, passing on all these cycles of pain and just broken patterns just so another generation can feel them, just so another generation can be broken again, like, no, like, we have to truly take responsibility of that there is a next generation after us, and what we're passing, the information we're passing, is crucial, crucial to the ones to come, right? And it's why like I said, I just feel like this topic is, oh man, it's just so important that we really look at. When also, like, ask yourself, why can't you see the broken patterns that you're in this time? A lot of the times we can't see the broken patterns because we're filled up with our own stuff. We're filled with our trauma. We're filled with our pain. We're filled with all these illusions of what matters. It doesn't matter. We're just filled with all this gunk that we need to release. And in order to release that stuff, we need to do the work. We cannot bypass it. We just cannot. Or else we're parenting from that place. As much as we say we love our children, if we're parenting from that place of fear and lack, there is going to be a consequence of the way we're parenting with our children, for sure. We will see it, because everything we plant, we will reap one day. Everything we will see the outcome of it.
They will. Your kids are going to show you a reflection of what you poured into them, and if you don't like it, then the only person that you can look at is yourself. You don't look at them. You don't say, how are they this way? What happened to them? Well, go look in the mirror. You happened to them.
And where are you reacting from, right? Are you reacting from the present moment, or are you reacting from your wounds?
From your own pain.
From your own pain that began in childhood or in other experiences
again, like,
that you went through.
Setting like those expectations that sometimes we have of them that are unrealistic. Like, they're kids, and then like reacting and like from anger because they're not acting like adults. Like, obviously what you're expecting of them is let's say, for example, like if I was reacting out of anger because they're not acting like an adult. I'm a 40-year-old woman. I cannot expect a 10-year-old to have the same mentality and expectations that I have. There's just no way. Or a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I just can't. Even my 17-year-old, like, there's just no way. And for me to be like, how could you not think this? How could you not have done this? How could you? Those are my expectations, and I cannot react if my kids are not in the same wave, like the same wavelength that I'm in when it comes to my expectations of them. Again, remembering that the 10-year-old is going to have a 10-year-old brain. They're going to want to do what a 10-year-old kid wants to do. Same as my 13, same as my 17-year-old. So continuing to remember that when you're throwing these like grown up things at them and then reacting out of anger because they're not doing what you 40-year-old you wants them to do, which makes no sense.
Yeah, and that information, if you're telling your child, why aren't you acting more mature, uh, the reflection of that question is, in what areas am I not acting mature myself? That's the only reason why you're saying it. If you're saying, why aren't you more mature? It's because you're really talking to yourself. And if you're saying, why aren't you more responsible? Again, you're talking about yourself. You're projecting your own stuff to your child.
Yep.
But you think it's the
them.
child. It's not. So a lot of parenting issues would truly be repaired or healed or fixed if we only made the time to look at ourselves and stop playing the blame game and look at the information that's in front of us and then use it to reflect back to us, right? Instead of just projecting all of our stuff onto our children.
Yeah. I just feel like I had to release all of it. Now I'm like, okay, I feel better now.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that this episode
It's very passionate.
Good. Yeah, because I mean, we're moms, and obviously we not only have seen some of these patterns in ourselves and our loved ones, and we just truly hope that this episode has helped someone or realize you could realize a thing or two, and remember that parenting can be a precious, powerful vehicle for raising yourself to the next level of emotional integration and well-being. Parenting could be a vehicle of healing, could be a vehicle of awareness, of being conscious. Like, it could be a powerful vehicle if we choose to see it that way, and we choose to release all of our burdens and all of the stuff that we're carrying, that we're just projecting out to our children, right? And but yeah, hopefully this taught you a thing or two.
Yeah, thank you, because it was great talking about it, and discussing it and sharing it. And I mean, I always learn something in every single episode. I learn something. I take something back. I take a lot of things back with me, and it keeps me very self-aware.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, me, the same thing. I'll go back and reflect on all of this, right? This is advice for ourselves too. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We are truly grateful that you stuck around for this whole episode. We have more to come. We really truly wish all of you to enjoy this holiday season. I know the stress is on right now with Christmas. So we hope you guys are enjoying this time. As always, you can find us at Unlocking Our Code Podcast. You can find me. I just recently changed my name on Instagram, so you can find me at Transforming Our Own Inner World. I almost forgot the name because I just changed it. Yes. Transforming Your Inner World. There you go. I'm getting used to the name. Transforming Your Inner World on Instagram.
Okay.
And you can find Lou.
You can find me at The Plug by Revive on Instagram. And again, send us your feedback. Send us your messages. We love to hear them. We love to hear what you guys think. Any feedback for us or comments, anything that you guys would like to hear next. We would love to get that information. So, but as of now, thank you guys so much. And we'll be talking to you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.